This broadcast of the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series is brought to you by Malois Transport and AssurAction Transport Expert. For oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec, visit www.malois-transport.ca. And for an expert and professional trucking insurance firm specializing in property and casualty insurance solutions for freight across Quebec, Canada and the United States, visit www.transportexpert.com. Welcome to the inaugural running, then, of the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series, brought to you by Malois Transport and AssurAction Transport Expert, and live exclusively here on TRTN. As always, I am Regan Clark, and it is my great honour to be your commentator for all 8 rounds of this exciting championship, as we begin a fantastic journey across the world of the SRO and FIA GT4 spec of cars for the first time here on TRTN. We begin our journey here in a sunny Monterey County, California, basking in this sun-soaked 2.2 miles of FIA Grade 2 that comprise one of America's finest auto racing venues, the WeatherTech Laguna Seca Raceway. Constructed in a dry lake basin in 1957, Laguna Seca began its life as a venue for sports car racing, holding the Course de Monterey in its inaugural year of 1957, that which was won by Pete Lovely in the 1957 Course de Monterey, driving his 1956 Ferrari 500 Testarossa. In the years thereafter, Laguna Seca's calendar became increasingly lively with rounds introduced for Can-Am, Trans Am, IMSA GT, Kart, IndyCar, the American Le Mans Series, NASCAR Grand American, the Speed World Challenge, now officially the GT World Challenge America, MotoGP, and many, many more. This year as well, in 2025, it's set to run the 31st running of the International Race of Champions. The last one, the 30th running, was run back in 2006 and won by Tony Stewart nearly some 20 years ago. And with this explosive rise in popularity, Seca would change its layout to promote closer and more exciting racing, first in 1988 and then in 1996, in which we find our current day layout, 2.238 or 3.602 kilometers of FIA Grade 2 and 11 whopping turns. And with a clean slate by which to start this championship, let's get acquainted with our paddock today. A lot of new faces here on TRTN, some of them not so new for those who have been tuning in since last Saturday. One of which here we can see was the star of the show back in single race 6, the number 5 Alpine of Richard Cecil. What else is there to say of the Alpine that we haven't already made clear back during the time of single race 6 on Saturday, where we were coming to you live from the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. The Alpine, of course, was introduced in 2017 as the Renault Group's answer to the rising demand for small and lightweight sports cars, following on trends from Porsche, Audi, Fiat Abarth and BMW. The A110's crowning achievement in its forefather life as the A110S from 1968 to 1975 was winning in both 1-2-3s at the 1971 and 1973 Monte Carlo Rally, as well as going on to win the first ever WRC Championship in 1973. Alpine as a team would have won Le Mans in 1978. It features a 1.8-litre Renault Nissan inline 4 producing anywhere between 350 and 400 brake horsepower, mounted on a 6-speed sequential gearbox, weighing in at only a minuscule 1,089 kilos. We saw Richard Cecil elevate this car to a fantastic top 10 finish in Monza amongst a myriad of results. He kept his head low and out of trouble, and that Alpine paid him dividends in his round in single race 6. Looking around the field, we can see a few drivers still in the pit lane, so let's try and keep a close eye on some of the drivers heading around the track. And who better to take as an example for the dominant rise of Chevrolet's popularity alongside its rivals from across the Atlantic at Mercedes-AMG, the man who won not only single race 6, but also has gone on to take his 7th overall victory here in the Competizione Performance League across both GT4 single races and GT3. The man, the myth, 119 of Christian Labey, who heads up the charge right now in what appears to be today's qualifying session, coming up in 15.5 minutes time. More on to the discussion of qualifying predictions as this free practice session progresses. But what else is there really to say about this? One of the most popular cars currently in GT4, in equal numbers, 8 sign-ups for Chevrolet, as there are 8 sign-ups for Mercedes-AMG. Starting things off then on the left side of the Atlantic, right here in the United States, is Chevrolet's finest offerings. Introduced in 2017, the 2017 sixth generation model Chevrolet Camaro was assembled by General Motors at their Lansing, Michigan facility, where in which it was then handed over to the head boffins at Pratt Miller Engineering, the very same company that constructed the legendary Corvette C6R, a car so fast some suggest it could have been the straw that broke the camel's back over in GT1. It also produced the C7R and the C8R at the very trailing end of the legendary GTE category. It features a 6.2-litre naturally aspirated LT1 engine from the Camaro SS, as opposed to what would have appeared to have been an LT4 from the car it takes visage from, the Camaro ZL1. Nonetheless, it features a naturally aspirated motor, making upwards of 480 brake horsepower. It is quite a whopper, the Camaro, and it is for good reason. This machine has took quite a long time to reach public notoriety, but it is one of the most popular choices coming into this championship, and a very, very familiar face both behind the wheel and on track, as there's plenty of these Camaros to discover today. Having a look around the field, you can see yet another Camaro making its way down the corkscrew. We'll get a comprehensive rundown of the track in a moment's time. Let's get a gander around the field to see the man who fought for the podium on the very, very last lap of single race 6 on Saturday, Anthony Villorio, the number 41 McLaren. It's an interesting little motor, a ubiquitous one at that, one of several single manufacturer entries into this entry list for round 1 of the championship. Villorio heads up the charge in the 570S. Introduced in 2016, developed in-house in Woking, Surrey by McLaren's Motorsports division. It features a 3.8-litre M838TE twin-turbo V8 engine making 413 brake horsepower. Its form and its function, and that is quintessentially McLaren. But this is remarkable looking at this engine, because it is a significant downtune by over 100 brake horsepower from the road models, 562. Having a look around the field, another single manufacturer entry. Now, we saw Clinton Bourne last time out around the back of the field in the number 6 Porsche Cayman. This time, he becomes the first driver on this grid to head up the charge in the Audi R8. Now, this is a remarkable motor indeed. Sadly, we are no longer with the Audi R8, as it left production in 2024. The Audi R8 Type 4S, as it was known, was introduced, this particular model, in 2018, developed by Audi Sport in Bronheim, Germany. If we check our notes here, 5.2-litre naturally aspirated V10 engine producing up to 495 brake horsepower, the very same engine you'll find under the bonnet or supposedly behind the driver's seat of the Lamborghini Huracan. It was revealed in concept form the year before manufacture at the 2017 New York International Auto Show, and despite Audi's long-standing legacy of race-ready all-wheel drive innovations, heralding back from their time at the Audi Quattro in the early 1980s, the R8 GT4, much like the R8 GT3, despite popular conception, is rear-wheel drive. However, this doesn't stop it from having an alleged 0 to 60 of 3 seconds, according to the boffins at Audi Sport. It takes its name from the R8 LMP, which in turn came from the R8R and the R8C. The R8 LMP, as a matter of fact, won Le Mans 5 times from 2000 to 2005. Their streak of what would have been 6 wins in a row was broken in 2003 by Bentley. The R8 LMP also went on to win the American Le Mans Series 7 times in a row from 2000 to 2006. An absolutely brutal machine that the road car takes homage from. It was introduced as a concept, the Audi Le Mans Quattro concept, in 2003 and later produced in June of 2006. This is the second generation model, the Type 4S, that was introduced in 2015. Having a look around that field once more, we can see here the BMW M4, and now this is another solo entry here for BMW, heralded by Giovanni Badiali, one of the only other drivers besides Christian Lebay to win a GT4 single race. He managed to do so quite some rounds ago, I believe in round 3 or 4, before we started covering things from round 6 onwards. He'll be heralding the number 998 then, here in the GT Pro-Am America Cup. And about the BMW introduced to this grid in 2017 by BMW M Sport, featuring a 3-litre BMW S55 twin-turbo inline-6, making 425 horsepower. It's arguably one of the most popular BMWs of all time, right up there with its forefather, the BMW M3. Checking on his way out of the grid here is one of the only Aston Martins to have entered the championship here. Rick Dowell, and number 336, makes his way down the pit road and down through the inside run of the Andretti hairpin down at turn 2. With the Aston Martin, it features a very similar engine to its sister car, the Mercedes-AMG GT. It features the export model of the Mercedes' M178, dubbed the M177. It's a 4-litre twin-turbo V8 engine, producing 469 brake horsepower, assembled by Aston Martin Racing in Gaydon, Warwickshire, and weighs 140 kilos less than its production model, being introduced at the 2019 Nürburgring 24. See, what is a series without the introduction of Porsche? The 718 Cayman, currently being driven on our screens at the moment by Byron Forrest in the 824. And this particular model, the 718 Cayman GT4 Club Sport, features a 4-litre flat 6, making 425 horsepower and weighing in at a titular 1,289 kilos. Byron Forrest is going to have quite a whale of a time then in the Porsche, and we'll get onto the discussion of balance of performance in a moment's time. We can also see one of the other Porsches, Graham Green, just on his way into the paddock now, the number 747 in the bright bronze and silver colours there. And of course, here is the arch rival then of the Chevrolet Camaro, one of the, if not the joint most popular car in this series for sign-ups, with 8 Chevys confirmed to race this season. We also have 8 AMGs, and as we saw Kevin Quain peel into the pits, let's see if we can find an AMG that's out on the track here to give us some lively footage on our tour around this mighty, mighty circuit indeed. But what I'm seeing right now is maybe a degree of hesitance here. So we'll stay with Quain, as you can see both him and Gabriel Gaudreau in the pit lane at the moment. But in the discussion of the AMG, it is set to be the arch rival of the Camaro in this championship. It's looking incredibly competitive right now. Introduced in 2017, developed by AMG in Sindelfingen, Germany, with a 4-litre M178 twin-turbo V8, making 430 horsepower. That's 39 esteemed less than its sister, the Aston Martin Vantage. Kevin Quain makes his way out onto the track as we are only 8 minutes left in free practice before the start of qualifying. So let's get on to the discussion before we head up qualifying of balance of performance today. As we stay on board with Kevin Quain, the discussion isn't looking particularly grand if you're Porsche or Alpine. 12 and 27 kilos added to the 718 and the A110. If you're McLaren or Audi, though, you're laughing. 40 kilos and 36 respectively. So Clinton Bourne's going to be feeling some very spry effect on the number 6, and so too is going to be the case for Anthony Villorio, the solitary McLaren of this championship, who will be seeing 40 kilos shed away from that already lightweight 570S. Mercedes and Chevrolet are going to find themselves in very close distances in this rule of extremes here, only 9 and 1 kilos respectively on either side of the scale. It's going to be negligible effects compared to their compatriots at McLaren, Audi, Porsche and Alpine for this round of the championship. With no real news in the terms of motorsport today, let's just keep an eye around the field. We see Karl Martel and Rick Dowell on their way to the lines at the moment. 3:36 and the 99. 2 seconds, nearly 2.5 seconds there apart after the end of that last lap. That was nearly his fastest personal lap by Karl Martel in the 99 there. He had to make up just under 0.2 of a second to improve. Sadly, not this time around. We catch here Christian Lebay now heading up the charge for the fastest time of free practice. He's looking for Grand Slam territory to kick this season off. He's already had an incredibly dominant spur here in the Competizione Performance League. Getting a look at those previous wins, there you can see all of the single races in which he's picked up 5 wins in GT4 and 2 in GT3. The man seems practically unstoppable. So if we try and catch on board with the driver here down towards the line, and what looks like a very challenging prospect today is Liam Bello from the United States, competing on home soil here in the 101, that royal purple and gold Chevrolet, just making his way around turn 1 and down towards turn 2 here at the Andretti hairpin. So he'll be our tour guide for this magnificent circuit. I would definitely make the argument one of the most iconic circuits in North America. Dare I say even one of the most iconic circuits in the world. On his way around turn 3 and 4 then, here in Sector 1, heading up Sector 2 as he exits Turn 3. Now round Turn 4 we go, and very deceptive runoff there on the left-hand side of Turn 4. Very easy to run things over the line, and there's very little margin for error here in Laguna Seca. Now up through Turn 5, on his way to Turn 6. He'll be heading up the hill now, really expressing some of the verticality this circuit hides beneath the cracks here. I don't think a lot of people tend to appreciate that until they're right up here at the top of the hill. Out through Turn 6 we go, up the Rahal Straight now to possibly the most iconic corner in American motorsports. It's Turn 7, 8 and 8A at the Corkscrew. This tumultuous drop downhill has been recognised the world over, and it is for good reason. You can see there from Bello, it's a challenging one. Very easy to knock the car asunder over those curbs. Let's catch on board here with the number 41 of Anthony Villorio. You can see making his way around turn 2. We want to try and get a gander here on a car that hasn't spun down through the corkscrew, and now through the rainy curve here at turn 9 is Richard Cecil in the Alpine. Out through turn 10 then, on his way down to turn 11. Heavy braking zone here into an almost acute square left to take us to the checkered line here. Cecil 5th fastest right now, but not currently heading up an improvement on this lap. It's going to be tough pickings here for Alpine. They're one of the more maneuverable manufacturers on a good day, but that heavy bias on the balance of performance here is not going to be doing them many favours whatsoever. In fact, they're the worse off for, I think, 27 kilos, that figure said earlier on. Chevys seem almost right at home here. Their forefather, the Corvette C6R, was an absolute demon at Laguna Seca, and a lot of that DNA exists in the titular Camaro GT4R. Definitely one of the cars to be today, and we'll get on to the discussion of qualifying predictions in about 4 minutes time when we get into the 20 minutes of qualifying today. But let's recount here the regulations for today's race. Looking at the regs then today, we're in the standard format, with the other one being the double stint format, wherein which we'll see free practice and quali stay, I believe, the same, and then 2 30-minute races back to back. The pit regs for today then, for the standard format, 1 mandatory pit stop with fuel and tyres on that mandate. Free practice, of course, has been nearly 20 minutes in now. We'll be on to a 20-minute qualifying, and then a 60-minute race then to bring us to the end of today. It is going to be a very, very exciting opening to this season. Plenty of unknowns for us here on TRTN, as we've only been able to see a handful of these drivers compete on a good day, and Laguna Seca rarely offers good days out sparingly. This is going to be very, very fascinating to see how these drivers tackle such a task. I don't think we've ever covered GT4s here at Seca. It's even rare to find GT3s competing here. It's not a particularly popular track in terms of promoting good races in accordance with the fan opinion here, but I think it's personally a fantastic little circuit. And back during my time doing sim racing, I also competed here at Seca, and it was a magnificent circuit to race around in its time. Still is to this day, in my honest opinion. We're on board at the moment with John Prine, making his way down to turn 11 in the number 22. I must say, it is very bizarre for us here on TRTN. Obviously, you can tell by the accent I'm not from around these parts, and recording at about 1 in the morning is not something I'd expect to be doing over the course of my career, but I couldn't turn down an opportunity such as this. And when approached by the folks over on Competizione Performance League that they were starting up a weekly series of GT4s, I leapt at that offer. It's been so rare we get to see properly solid GT4 races, not shackled to being in a multi-class series like some of our other operations here. To see the GT4s really spread their wings and fly is a liberating experience for us here, and I imagine for these drivers, not having to worry about a GT3 breathing down your neck is going to give them ample opportunity to fight one another, uncontested by anyone around them. You can see a very Chevrolet-lenient paddock there. Plenty of drivers involved. You can see LeBay. We can also see the number 36 to our right-hand side of the purple Chevrolet. The number 36 there of Alex Albert. And the 36, the 101 centre mass of the screen. There's Liam Bello. Right behind him is Christian LeBay. Right behind him is also Rick Dowell in that bright blue Aston Martin. Villorio on his way to the corkscrew. Let's see how the McLaren tackles things here in the waning minutes of free practice before we're on to 20 minutes of qualifying today. And you can see a lot more manoeuvrability than the Chevrolets we've seen take this corner. And that might be something Villorio can exploit come race time in about 20, looking at it here, just about 21 minutes time. But of course, the meat and potatoes here has got to be cleared before we get on to the main course, and that's going to be that qualifying session. I eagerly await the start of it then, as there's quite a lot of juicy data to dig into today, and it's a rare sight in the last couple of weeks for us to have a fully stacked out top 10 qualifying prediction. And what a pleasure it is then from us here to finally be able to have something to work with here in quali. You see down towards the line, the number 58, Timo De Tosto, who had a fantastic race in Monza, takes his time there to the line, and the number 58 crossing the line or 15th fastest in free practice. But of course, there's no points in practice and also no points in qualifying. If I'm not mistaken, the regulations not permitting for a fastest lap point in quali like some series do. Down towards the line then, fellow Mercedes, Gabriel Gaudreau. Seca is a demanding track. It is a tyre killer. In these kind of conditions as well, it is not easy for our drivers to go up against the might here of Laguna Seca. 20 minutes against the clock then. And on board with the paddock, we can see already drivers making their way out the gates. Let's see if we can catch on board with the one leading the charge. It's the 824 of Byron Forrest. So on his way down towards the infield run of turn 2. Some drivers we've seen before, and this is mostly in practice and testing sessions, end up just cutting that run down towards turn 2. They want to get onto the grade 2 as soon as possible. This is something they'll have to consider with that mandatory pit stop in effect. This is not an easy pit lane to get up to speed on. It's an even tighter version of one of the tightest corners on this track. We've seen plenty of drivers run asunder into that gravel, and that pretty much completely throws away an early chance to bed in those Pirellis. It's a lot easier for these GT4s. They run on lower pressures. They can get some heat in the tyres much, much quicker than their big boys in GT3. So up through turn 5 we go then with Byron Forrest. He'll be the first heading up the times then. And whilst we wait for him to start his first flying lap here as we enter Sector 2, let's discuss the qualifying predictions of today. Now, we've already discussed balance of performance, but quali predictions is something else entirely. And it pitches Christian Lebay on pole position with a 1:29.360. Byron Forrest on our screens at the moment, heading up the charge for Porsche to put himself on what is a predicted front row start of 1:30.227. Liam Bello looks to make third position, previously 7th in the last data packet for a 1:34.05. Behind him, Karl Martel with a 1:35.60. Then the first of our Mercedes cars in 5th, Timo de Tosto, a 1:30.607. Richard Cecil in 6th there with Alpine, a 1:30.835. Graham Green, the second of our 2 Porsches, in 7th with a 1:31.195. Alex Albert in the number 36 Chevrolet makes 8th position, a 1:31.440. Andrew Veldkamp with Mercedes makes a 1:31.630. He'll be in 9th and rounding out that top 10. Rick Dowell, the number 663 Aston Martin. It's not going to be an easy one then for Aston today. And one result I am pleasantly surprised to see is that of Byron Forrest. Now, the odds are stacked against him when you come back to the discussion of balance of performance. Him and Richard Cecil aren't seeing much benefit today with 12 and 27 kilos whacked on the 718 and the A110. So for Byron Forrest to plant a time capable of the front row definitely leaves quite a bit of wonder here for this qualifying session. The first of the season, every impression counts here, and it could spell the precedent for the rest of the 8 rounds of the championship. And whilst we wait here with Byron Forrest as he's up and around turn 6, we'll get on to the discussion after these first flying laps of the calendar ahead. On our way then to turns 7, 8 and 8A. It's looking particularly strong here for Byron Forrest. His last lap there, a 1:35.925. Now bear in mind that's an out lap. Nothing too much to report there. On his way down towards turn 11 then, it's looked like a very, very strong start. You can see in the background there Richard Cecil and then Christian Lebay, so do expect some theatrics here in the opening couple of laps. Byron Forrest is our de facto time then. He'll be the benchmark for today's qualifying session with 16 minutes left to go. 1:36.42. What's the matching time by Richard Cecil and Christian Lebay? Richard Cecil, second fastest, Lebay to the line and usurps the pair of them by 1.3 seconds to put himself on provisional pole. The 6:07 of Kevin Quain crosses the line, 4th fastest. Then the number 58, Timo de Tosto, second fastest with Mercedes. The number 3 next to the line, Gabriel Gaudreau. Behind him, I believe that's the 998 of Giovanni Badiali with BMW, crosses the line for 4th fastest. Right behind him is Liam Bello, who takes 4th right off of him, pushing the Italian to the back of the top 5. 747 crossed the line not a moment ago there. Graham Green, 9th fastest. The 336 crosses the line. Rick Dowell behind him in 10th. Number 6, having crossed the line just a moment ago, starts his flying lap. It's Clinton Bourne in the Audi R8. Number 22 across the line, John Prine, sadly doesn't set a valid time in the Chevrolet. But on his way to the line to set a valid time, fellow Chevrolet Karl Martel makes his way to the line as we speak. Crossing the line there, 8th fastest after his first flying lap. So quite a rip-roaring start then in the opening 5 minutes of qualifying. Bear in mind, still a quarter of an hour before the end of today's session. And whilst we've got a little bit of an intermediary, let's quickly discuss then the calendar for Season 1 here of the Pro-Am Cup America by Competizione Performance League. We start here in Laguna Seca, and you'll be finding us in England for the next round at Alton Park. Then over to the land of the rising sun in Suzuka, Mie Prefecture, Japan, on September 2nd, back to England for Donington Park, and then over to Italy for the midway of the season, or past the midway actually, I should say. I'm so used to 10-round championships, with Imola at round 5. Watkins Glen, we return to the United States in Schuyler County, New York State at round 6, then over to Belgium with Zolder, and rounding out the championship in Emilia-Romagna at Misano. It's going to be an exciting season then, make no mistake of that. We've just seen the 58 across the line. Timo de Tosto goes second fastest. Number 3 crossing the line, and the number 998, Giovanni Baddiali, now up to 4th, but he was pushed down again, this time by Liam Bello. So these two going tit for tat here. He pushed him to the back of the top 5. He goes up a position, and I'll leapfrog you, thank you very much, says Liam Bello. You're down to 4th. Anything you can do, I can do better, seems to be the modus operandi between the 998 and the 101. A little bit of a tit-for-tat rivalry we're seeing already brewing here in Quali. Right now, the story, though, is up front. Christian Lebay, rather predictably, shown to be on pole position and actually gunning above his predicted times, if I'm led to believe correctly. At 1:29.325, is actually, yes, only by a fraction here, a few hundredths, give or take, but is ahead of his predicted time. So it's a beyond perfect start to qualifying for Lebay. Already looking for a lockout start to this race. Could he elevate that to a win? Well, we have an hour, well, about an hour and a bit to tell that here. 30 minutes left in quali, and of course an hour coming up for race time. We see Byron Forrest up to 3rd there after his last lap. The 824 now usurping both Vilorio, Bello and Baddiali. We see Richard Cecil just hopped up a position to 8th there ahead of Alex Albert. And also we did just see as well, sneaking up past Bello and Baddiali, Anthony Vilorio. We said it was looking to be a pretty strong day for McLaren. Of course, beneficial balance of performance package, and we also saw little inklings of it down through Corkscrew. There's just so much more bite on the 570S in that middle and final. So a lot of hope here for the European cars, but it's right now dominated by the Stars and Stripes over in Chevrolet's quarters. I believe we did also see as just we cut away from Vilorio. I'm not 100% on that, but pretty sure he spat as we cut away there. See here, Byron Forrest up round turn 6 on his way to the Corkscrew. Let's get a gander to see what the Porsche's capable of, though. Just under 13 minutes left to go. We saw the McLaren, we saw the Chevrolet. Let's get a gander from Porsche, looking tidy. Looking very, very tidy here. Now, it's going to make or break any lap time here is whether or not you can nail this section of the track, and that is very tidy from the 824 of Byron Forrest. I would not be surprised if we're seeing a few tenths of an improvement there just from that sector alone. That was blinding pace. So we'll follow with Byron Forrest. It is looking hopeful here. If that sector was anything to go off of, has he chained it together before and after, though, is the real question. He gets to the line. It is an improvement, so I'm not wrong on that. 2 tenths, as a matter of fact, dead on. But it's still not enough to match the time of Timo de Tosto, currently 2nd place. And you actually see him here as he heads down towards the line. The 607 just crossed the line. Kevin Quain in 10th. Here's Timo de Tosto, though, the leading AMG of the pack here in that rivalry between Chevrolet and Mercedes. Let's see what de Tosto does across the line. Sadly, not an improvement. So right now, Lebay still unopposed as we head towards the midway mark of qualifying. One driver making his way up through the top 5 there, and up ahead of Vilorio. Now Giovanni Baddiali. So it is looking hopeful for BMW. This is their only guy invested here, Baddiali. And fun fact about Giovanni Baddiali, we take a look at the previous wins. We brought up the dominance of Christian Lebay, but that was broken at single race 4 by Baddiali himself in Suzuka. So do count on this one to potentially be the god killer of the championship here. Or I maybe spoke a little too soon. That is rough. Yeah, don't expect to see too few of those. Of course, that argument before, there's so little room for error. I think this is the best of it when you have the alternate layouts to your left and right, and the salvage roads there is the best possible place to run asunder, but otherwise it's just sand and gravel. Of course, we are established right here in the basin of a dried out lake, Laguna Seca, a Spanish translation of dry lake. So a lot of dirt and a lot of dust here, not a lot of hope for if you exit the confines of the Grade 2 tarmac. Out across the line then went Byron Forrest, sadly not to an improvement on this lap. But bear in mind, we've only just hit the halfway mark of qualifying, and it has been very, very hopeful indeed for quite a few. Kevin Quain now up to the top 5. We just saw him cross the line a moment ago. The 607 now inside the pivotal second margin, just squeezed outside of that second margin, and now consequently outside of the top 5 is Anthony Villorio, the number 41 McLaren, running wide there out through turn 6. That is going to be a pretty plentiful case today, if I had to guess. It's one of the easiest areas of the track. It's so bizarrely shaped. As a matter of fact, let's see if we can catch on board with any of the drivers just making their way up through this section. And you can get maybe some indication here of just how bizarrely shaped it is. Now, we'll just whack it on the instant replay. And we're watching here, I believe this was with, yes, Byron Forrest. And you can see it starts on camber, and then it's very easy to wash to the high side of it there. And just over that curve, it actually lips over, makes it almost nigh impossible to escape being dragged off track. It is not particularly friendly to these less aero-intensive GT4s. A lot of mechanical grip is going into their performance today. Now, it's not entirely. I'd say it's probably, if you want to get approximated here, probably an 80-20 or maybe even a 70-30 split on how much aerodynamics contributes here to these cars' performance. They are definitely a lot more mechanically minded. Aerodynamics development is expensive, and GT4s are designed to be at the ground floor, so relatively minimal stuff here, but not without it entirely. That'll be your Cup Series, your M2s and your MX5s, which have also raced here, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Sadly, with that replay, that has reset our counter, so we will have to drag that off for a second. We'll give you some live updates on the qualifying timer, and that's why we don't do replays in quali. So, 8 minutes and 40 left to go. That is a big snap out wide there for Byron Forrest, and I did say that area is going to catch quite a few drivers off guard. Just going to quickly try and fix that timer and bring that back up on our screens here. So that'll resume at 8 minutes. We're on board with Graham Green down towards turn 2. That Andretti hairpin is one of our first real opportunities for side-by-side racing. Now, we've seen plenty of ambitious move made down into that section of the track. Let's see if we can catch another driver on his way down here. The 336, sorry, not the 663 as mentioned earlier. And you'll see that qualifying counter come back up in a moment's time, and here it is. So, 8 minutes left to go in quali. You can see plenty of drivers are running things out wide here through turn 2, and that seems to be bit of a consistent pattern at the moment. It's not an easy hairpin to tackle. Let's see if we can catch the 41 just as it makes the first of 2 apexes here. The Andretti hairpin. It is a bizarrely shaped corner because it's almost like a super rounded off square. I think closest comparison I could give you is, for those of you who are aware of the layout for Donington Park, it would be the Melbourne hairpin, turn 11. The penultimate corner of the main layout, the Grand Prix layout of the Donington Park circuit. And it is the same one we'll be visiting not too long from now, actually, in a few rounds' time here on the calendar. 7 minutes then left to go in quali. Time currently 1:12 p.m. in game. I believe as the time of recording, it is 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which I believe is the configuration of time we'll be using. Right now for me, though, it's 1:30 in the morning, and I'm wondering if I'm getting a noise complaint tomorrow. Down through the corkscrew we go then, and this is massively off-piste for the McLaren there. That is perhaps an indication of another biting issue. Now, we know heat is easily generated, but how well is core temperature easily regulated on those GT4s? And on a track like this, they're not particularly polite on those Pirelli P0s. It is very easy to overheat those tyres and subsequently cause a lot of undue and a lot of excessive wear that is going to massively hamper performance today, especially for more cornering intensive cars like the McLaren that favour having much sharper responses. That's going to be massively dulled by the withering P0s. 6.5 minutes then left to go. Quickly catch here in the penultimate corner. It's Clinton Bourne on an ambitious move across to Audi. Now, we didn't know whether or not this was a calculation he had made that he knew would pay off. I think it seems more like a bit of a gamble moving away from Porsche to the confines of Audi, but trading one German machine for another doesn't seem too shabby in one's mind. Across the line goes Clinton Bourne, but sadly not to an improvement. So let's get a gathering here of where things stand in the last 6 minutes of qualifying. Labbé still holds his nerve there and has actually extended his gap to half a second, improving over his personal best and the predicted best for a 1:29.180. I would not be too surprised here if he's got enough juice in that 1:19 to squeeze into a very high 1:28 by the end of today's qualifying session. Timo de Tosto still stands only 200ths above his contemporaries here for second place. Anthony Vilorio has closed the gap massively. It is almost infinitesimal, the gap between himself and de Tosto for control of the last of those front row positions. It's going to be an uber competitive start to today's race. Byron Forrest was predicted at the front row, right now settles for the back of the second row, but he's still, just like Vilorio, got plenty of advantage here and plenty of a chance to come and fight for positions above, especially during qualifying now in the last 5 minutes of the session, but also for the session coming here with 60 minutes of racing. Kevin Quain rounds out that top 5, and now you can see plenty more drivers have squeaked their way into that second margin. It started off at around 5 cars, we're now up to 7, with Badiali and Bello in 6th and 7th. Karl Martel in 8th position drops outside of the second barrier, 1.3 seconds off pace from pole position, but Richard Cecil is only 5 thousandths, mark that, thousandths of a second off from 8th position. So even though it may not be close to the top, it is close everywhere else. That is a consideration one must take over the course of qualifying. It may not seem like a lot is being challenged here for pole position, but have a gander at every position behind him, and then you can see where the majority of the racing is going to be. All of these drivers are looking to scramble to be in the first in-line position to come and have a go at the King's Throne here, currently held by Christian Lebay right at the very end here of quali. 4 minutes left to go, and Richard Cecil has the potential for 8th position here. You can see not a lot has to be made of it, but after running off there at turn 10, his chances of a valid lap still counting after this one are highly, highly unlikely. See further behind him at the back of the top 10, Alex Albert, then Clinton Bourne in the number 6 Audi, Graham Green in the number 747 Porsche, the number 22 of John Prine, Rick Dowell in the Aston Martin, and Gabriel Gaudreau in the number 3 Mercedes. Definitely some mixed acclaim here at Mercedes, and same story for Chevrolet, both present sites across the paddock from front to back. I mean, heck, all you've got to do is look at the front row. It's Chevrolet from Mercedes. Speaking of, let's stay on board here as he looks to be coming to the end of a flying lap, though a bit of a kick there over turn 10 has slowed him down, kicked a lot of the wind out of the sails here of Timo de Tosto. A promising top 5 finisher in Monza, Timo de Tosto has got quite a lot to prove in this championship, as he seems currently first in line to challenge Lebay off of the front row. And now a great start here is absolutely vital, because you can see the run we've got down towards turn 2. A great start even from the outside where de Tosto will be on race start can net him a solid advantage in the corners to come. If he can stay alongside Christian Lebay's Chevrolet, he could potentially eye up positions up through turn 3 here, and then being able to potentially solidify that move by turn 4 as he's crossing right now. So plenty of chances here on that front row, and it's no too different a story on that second row. You can see just how close things are between Vilorio and Forrest. Less than a tenth of a second you're talking here. About looking at about 8 tenths and 5 thousandths in and around the gap there between 3rd and 4th position, Vilorio and Forrest, and Quain at the back of that top 5. Badiali's out on track at the moment, and to bear in mind, he's the only other driver, as mentioned before, in the history of the Competizione Performance League's GT4 category. Bear in mind, these are the single races, so non-championship contributing rounds. He is the only other driver to take victory positions here in GT4, thwarting what would have been a 100% success rate for the 119 of Christian Lebay. Less than 2 minutes then left to go in quali. Really, the question remains, with such little time left in the session and such little chance of his position being challenged, is Christian Lebay content to wait in the pit lane here whilst Timo de Tosto and Anthony Vilorio clash horns in the attempt to usurp him? Well, we're amongst the final point of no return times here in qualifying. We'll be seeing the final laps come through in a moment's time. Right now, Timo de Tosto might just have enough time here for one more in the chamber in the number 58. The number 41 may not have the same chance. Actually, yes, this will be the next lap coming, his final opportunity here to stake major acclaim of pole position by the end of quali here in round 1. What an exciting opening qualifying it has been then. We can only imagine where things go in the next 60 minutes of racing to follow, but we're in the final laps here for Vilorio. We check with De Tosto as he's up through turn 6. Bear in mind, he's got just enough in the tank here if he can really get the hammer down for one more on the track. So he could even potentially still usurp a comeback drive by Vilorio. Bear in mind, that gap is super, super small here. This is Vilorio's final shot here for even second place in qualifying, but of course all of them gunning for that top position. But with half a second to clear, the chances do not seem particularly likely, but miracles can come from the most unexpected of places. So in the final minutes of qualifying, who comes out on top then for the first pole position of season 1 of the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America? Vilorio then up through turn 5. We'll check in here, as you can see, with only a few seconds to spare, 10 as a matter of fact, as he crosses the line. One more lap in the tank for Timo de Tosto's 58 Mercedes. We are now at the end of qualifying. It'll be the end of the line here for Vilorio. One final shot on this very lap to stake a claim not only for second, but for first ahead of it. Where, oh where, will the 41 emerge? See, the number 6 is trailing him there and running wide out through the rainy curve. That's the end of the road for Vilorio's qualifying endeavours. The number 6 of Clinton Bourne stays on the track, just about there. A little bit of dirt kicked up under his rear right after turn 10. Or turn 9, actually. He's out through turn 10 now. Now to turn 11. He's one of only 2 cars left on this track. Clinton Bourne, could he make his way to the top 10? He needs 4/10 on this very lap. Otherwise, he's starting outside of it and behind Alex Albert. And it seems all but secure there for Albert's final of the top 10 positions. Now the real story. Who comes out on top? It is a miracle lap in the making here for De Tosto if he can make half a second's improvement on Christian Lebay. It is a monolithic task for him here in the opening qualifying session. We're not starting off at the shallow end. No, no, no. Straight in at the deep end of qualifying for a lot of these drivers here familiar with one another. But who gets first pole position? Will it be Lebay? Will it be De Tosto? Heading to the end of the line then. He has to make half a second possible here. 129, 180 to beat the 58 to the line. And very nearly makes it. Now, that is a very, very admirable effort from Timo de Tosto. He split the time there nearly down the middle. Sadly, he won't be taking home pole position, but he's given it a very, very good go. Now, if that's not sending at least a little bit of a shiver down Christian Lebay's spine, I'm not sure what will, because what it has shown is that half a second barrier, that glass ceiling, as it were, can be cracked. So, Christian Lebay on pole position for the first round here of the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series. We'll get on to a full grid rundown then in a moment's time. To remind you of the regulations for today's race, bringing those back up, it's the standard format, 60 minutes of racing on the charts here today, with one mandatory pit stop, fuel and tyres as part of that mandate. So a bit more of a strategic element added in for this first round of the championship. Now, taking a look at the calendar here before we recount the grid, you'll notice as well those double sprint races. Now, that'll be rounds 2, 4, 6 and 7. And those will feature 2 30-minute races with no mandatory pit stop. A little bit more open-ended strategy there. You can see our pesky little timer started back up for going away, and that's what happens when you use basic plugins for OBS. It is 1:43 a.m. It'll be about 8:43 p.m. Eastern Time for a lot of these drivers here competing from the United States and Canada. So we just wait now for the lineup of our first grid of the day. 16 cars, so it seems. Whether or not we'll see Andrew Veldkamp join that grid is another story entirely. Sadly, did not set a time in today's session. We'll start from the back behind Gabriel Gaudreau. On what seems to be a law of extremes for not only balance of performance, but it seems for this grid as well. Mercedes and Chevrolet finding themselves at the front and back. And that is an oddly long amount of time to form up to a grid here. ACC never ceases to amaze with how long it chooses to wait. I believe we just saw a driver disappear there. I'm not sure who that was. So that real question is, down in the turn 2, who's going to come out on top out of Timo de Tosto and Christian Lebay, two uber competitive drivers in two uber competitive cars. It is a real who's who here. A bit of a gunslinger draw here in Monterey County, California. Who is going to pull that trigger first? Who is going to get the faster of the two starts? And now we finally get to see the grid form up. And we have lost a driver rather peculiarly there. You can see, yes, in the middle of the grid is a missing driver. So it does appear, and that is mighty unfortunate. I believe that was a disconnect then we saw in the paddock. That can't be particularly grand then for whoever disconnected. We'll find out in a moment's time who that was. Christian Lebay then will start on pole position. There you can see rejoining. It was Karl Martel that had trouble with connections there. The number 99 will now start from 15th. And he's not going to be particularly happy about this change in fate, but you'll have to make up for it over the course of today's race. So Christian Lebay will start from pole position here in round 1 at Laguna Seca, and Timo de Tosto challenges him from the front row. You can see just how tightly packed things are going to be here. Not a lot of wiggle room either side of them for the race start, and that's going to be a sentiment carried down all the way to the back of that top 10. You can see as much as there is a competitive front row, it is matched by a competitive second and third row. Anthony Villorio in third, Byron Forrest in fourth. Rounding out that top 5 and starting that super competitive third row, Kevin Quain in the 607 and Giovanni Badiali in 6th in the number 998 BMW. I must say, for the only BMW and only McLaren, they have made a real tour de force entry there. Both cars inside pivotal top 10 scoring positions. Liam Bello in 7th position then, and Richard Cecil in the titular Alpine makes the top 10 in the number 5. Alex Albert in 9th position, and then Clinton Bourne pays off on his gamble there at the very end of quali as he finds himself inside that top 10, much to the chagrin of Karl Martel. That sees Audi in their first top 10 this season. Rick Dowell then will start just outside the top 10 with Aston Martin's number 336 Vantage and Graham Green behind him in the 747 Porsche 718 Cayman. John Prine in 13th and Gabriel Gaudreau in 14th. A reluctant back of the field start for Karl Martel. With that standard pit stop configuration, fuel and tyres, it's going to be a little bit on the longer side. You're looking at a bare minimum here of about 20 to 25 seconds. Fortunately for these drivers, it's one of the shortest entries into the pit lane. Cuts right off at the very exit of turn 10 and runs parallel to turn 11. A bit of a tight entry, and in the GT3s we've seen plenty of drivers actually run over the chalks there and into the tyre barrier on the right hand side as they enter. Not too hard to do that in these GT3s, and one driver be keeping a close eye on was the gamble of Clinton Bourne, because some of you may know in GT4 the rather glaring design flaw with Audi's braking system, and it is, let's say, less than effective compared to its contemporaries in both Europe and in North America. So let's get on board with the leading car then. Christian Lebay starts from pole position. He'll take us away on this formation lap. Taking us away then, the sonorous cry of that 6.2 litre LT1 V8. The LT, and by contrast the LS, I've really got to say, have to be among history's greatest V8 engines. It is almost a universally known engine now, the LS and LT engines. Chevrolet, I'm not even sure what they were cooking up there in the mad scientist laboratory that had to have been General Motors headquarters all so many years ago when they cooked up this mind-blowingly fast engine. You see, it's really the battle of the V8s though on the podium right now, and from 3 different areas of the world. AMG's V8 there, sandwiched in between McLaren and Chevrolet. And we can see punching above his weight there with a flat 6 in 4th position, Byron Forrest finds himself without 2 extra cylinders inside that top 5. Making our way then out through what is definitely going to see quite a few casualties today, turn 4 on our run to turn 5. Now, there is ample opportunity, like down at turn 2, for drivers if they're feeling brave enough to swing for the inside here, but it is a rarely seen move, as heading up the hill you'll be to a disadvantage to anyone who runs around the outside and conserves just that ounce more momentum. Momentum's going to be absolutely key here as we crest the hill and into a corner that has claimed just as many as turn 4. It's turn 6. In towards turns 7, 8 and 8A. at the corkscrew. Now, this 15 cars in all is going to be a very scary sight, especially if anyone gets the confident idea to go side by side. Now, not impossible. It is definitely quite a gamble. We've seen drivers attempt so back in GT3 and the various times we've been here to Laguna Seca, but maybe the smaller GT4s have got the key to side-by-side racing that maybe we just don't get in the higher categories. Out through the rainy curve then at turn 9. This corner is definitely going to see a few casualties as well. It seems to be a bit of a recurring theme here at Laguna Seca. Definitely one of the more skill-specific tracks. Not a lot of available runoffs like you would see in potentially, say, for example, another American track, the Circuit of the Americas, that it isn't on this calendar. Or even perhaps you can even make the argument Watkins Glen, which is on this calendar. So as we watch for Christian Lebay, 15 cars in all will line up then for round 1 of the championship here of the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series. Out through turn 11 we go. Without further ado, begins the crawl to the line, 2 abreast here for the opening round of Competizione Performance League's GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series. Without further ado then, from the 119 leading the charge with Green and Racing here in Laguna Seca. Already a fantastic start from the leading Chevrolet, and an even better start, dare I say, from behind him there. And the number 41 McLaren rockets past Timo de Tosto's number 58. They'll go 2 abreast, even perhaps 3 abreast with the introduction there of Giovanni Badiali's BMW. They siphon back in, and coming out on top by heading the long way around town, the 58 of Timo de Tosto retains second place. Still leading that charge then, Christian Lebay on a flawless endeavour with Chevrolet. Looking further down the field, you can see the grid bunching up a bit there and running off track. You can see already that was a yellow flag out, and it was for Clinton Bourne in the Audi. He did say someone was going to get caught out in this section of the track. I was not expecting that to come true so early on in today's race. We're back into green flag conditions with nary a minute to spare on our way up through turn 5. Looking up that field, here's Anthony Villorio up ahead of Giovanni Badiali and Kevin Quain, who round out that top 5. You can see just how close that BMW is willing to make it here on our first run into the corkscrew at full race pace. What is Badiali's thought process here? The 41 is going to try his dearest in the early moments of today's race to defend for that coveted podium position. He fought for the podium in the very last lap of single race 6. What is he going to do now with the championship riding on the line here in the next 8 weeks? What a start then we just saw from the likes of our top 5. Getting a look further behind them to see what the status of affairs is. We can see Rick Dowell here trying to defend from John Prine. You can see up ahead was nearly some side-by-side action between Graham Green and Alex Albert. Graham Green, I must say, has had a phenomenal start to get that Porsche up inside the top 10. And 747 was hanging around the back of that top 10 margin for the start of today's race. He's definitely had a much more spry start compared to a less than ideal qualifying session. You can see ahead of him there Liam Bello and Richard Cecil, who's up an extra position from race start. Watching here, you can see Gabriel Gaudreau's got a clear line of sight on Carl Martel and John Prine in front of him. The twin Chevrolets on their way down towards turn 3. Both of whom racing for the Malois racing team. Now, do not believe there is a team's championship this time around. It would be a little bit one-sided, considering half the grid seem to be associated with the Malois racing team. What is an up-and-coming Canadian startup headed up by Christian Lebay and Malois Transport, one of our sponsors for this championship. The other, of course, being AssurAction Transport Expert. Both proud sponsors of TRTN's coverage here on the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series. Looking at the front then, you can see the gap start to open between the Camaro and the AMG. Timo de Tosto is losing steam on his fight against Christian Lebay and may have to size up his chances to defend from the advancing 41 of Anthony Villorio in the McLaren behind. See, it's not exactly out of the woods for anyone else inside this top 10. You can see Quain and Forrest look to be getting into it in a moment's time. Let's get on board with the defending of the 2 cars then. Kevin Quain has got his hands full in the fight for the top 5. He's fending off 5th position there from the advancing 824. Byron Forrest has had a very spry start indeed. We saw that he had a very spry start to qualifying, but up against Chevrolet, BMW, McLaren and Mercedes, that Porsche, sadly, with today's balance of performance, just couldn't hold a candle. Down towards the Andretti hairpin, you can see in front, Badiali and Villorio are incredibly close. We'll be getting on board with that fight for 3rd in a moment's time. They're half a second, just as 2 is the fight for 5th between Forrest and Quain. They're half a second between the pair of them. And all through this crunch time here, as we enter Sector 2, we can see that gap to Giovanni Badiali is withering. Oh my goodness, a big kick over the exit of turn 4 there is definitely going to put a bit of confidence into the step of Byron Forrest. He's 0.2 per second. He was even eyeing his look towards the inside. You can see the Mercedes went to cover centre mass of the road up through turn 5. What did I say? What a fantastic opening 4 minutes we've had here. Up to turn 6 we go, right behind him. You can see Byron Forrest just buying his time here. He's not trying anything too ambitious. He knows that Quain's got a lot more pressure than he does to perform for position. Richard Cecil is just far away enough for him to breathe a sigh of relief there for position. For the time being, that Alpine about a second and a half out from Byron Forrest. We're watching with Kevin Quain at the moment, trying his hardest here to fight for 5th. Holding on to the last of those top 5 positions from the advance of the 824 Porsche. We can see yellow flags are out. Let's get a gander as to what's gone on in the background. Let's see who it is. It's the number 6, Clinton Bourne, caught up with the number 3, as a matter of fact. That's down at the corkscrew. Let's see if we can find him here. There's Clinton Bourne. He's caught up with Gabriel Gaudreau. Now, I'm not 100% on what happened down there. It seemed pretty indicative of a side-by-side collision on their way through turns 7, 8 and 8A. Back in the green flag conditions then, Clinton Bourne and Gabriel Gaudreau at the back of the field. One driver who won't be complaining is Carl Martel. He's up 3 positions from where he started today's race in 15th. Both of these two will be looking at their first run then into the pit lane because Gaudreau calls it early. Clinton Bourne's going to stay out. And see what could be the fight for 3rd in the near future. As you can see, kicking up dust in the face of Byron Forrest behind was our previous fight for the top 5 between Quain and Forrest. This could be the discussion of that fight for 3rd. Giovanni Badiali, of course, bear in mind, one of the only other drivers here in the history of the Competizione Performance League to beat the likes of Christian Lebay to a winning position. Now, that may not be entirely within his grasp today, but his chances here to fight for 3rd and even beyond that for 2nd as Timo de Tosto peels into frame is definitely likely. Let's stay on board then with the BMW of Giovanni Badiali. He's got front row tickets here to what could even be a 3-way fight for 2nd right now. It's feasibly for 3rd. He's trying his way to the inside but just couldn't find the room. Can he find the room on the exit of turn 10 in towards turn 11? I did say this is one of our better attacking zones, but he's just too far away. So out through turn 11, better of the 2 exits there, but it's McLaren versus BMW, and the McLaren, courtesy of being mid-engine, has got just a little bit more weight over its rear axle. What this gives it is just a little bit more shove when he gets down onto the throttle. Down to the Andretti hairpin, then right up to his rear quarter. Giovanni Badiali actually runs things a little bit wider than expected, but he nips things back in for the second part of that apex on the exit of turn 2. Out through turn 3. Now, this is the sort of unspoken danger zone of Seika. Keep a close eye here, barreling through turn 4. That sausage curb on the inside, we saw it kick up the back end of Kevin Quain's 607 Mercedes not too long ago. Very easy for you to nearly flip the car over if you hit it hard enough. That's what a lot of these drivers here are going to avoid with religious zeal over the course of the next 53 minutes of racing. Up to turn 6 we go. The very top of the hill, you can see that Lebay has massively escaped any kind of threat for position right now. It would be strategy. There would only be the possibility of taking that away from him. De Tosto now has fallen back into the fight for 2nd place. He's going to have to start considering defensive maneuvers against the approaching McLaren and BMW in the next couple of laps if this is to continue. Out through turn 9 then, a rainy curve. Right now, things are plateauing. We're waiting for that hot phase, but you can see staying very close to his target, the number 41 in front of him. We're watching still with Giovanni Badiali in the 998. We'll be taking a look behind him, though, as we can see things rearing up with Liam Bello and Richard Cecil. The Alpine versus the Chevrolet. So let's cut away from our fight for 3rd here. We can also see Rick Dowell has got his hands full with the approaching tide of Carl Martel, John Prine and Alex Albert. A triple offensive from Chevrolet outside of that top 10. You see he is being properly marauded for position in the starting 10 minutes of this race. Rick Dowell has got his chances up against him here with Aston Martin. Let's see where he's able to take this. Oh, down the inside goes the number 99. Apologies, I was just momentarily distracted by what I can only describe to you as the single loudest aircraft I've ever heard fly over my house. Back up on the inside, then to the outside at turn 3. This is fantastic side-by-side stuff here between Martel and Dowell, but who comes out on top into turn 4? Does Martel overcook it? Yes, he does, because he picks up quite a bit of smoke there by kicking up dust, I should say, on the exit of turn 4 into turn 5. The Aston Martin right up to his rear quarter is going to try and run things long, then short for a late A. apex to bring himself back into frame. What can Rick Dowell do here in the fight for 10th? The Aston Martin, like I said, he's got the odds stacked against him in today's race. Less than beneficial balance of performance. Not the worst off of it, but really right now, the Aston's up against it. Oh, what a big slide there. That's into the wall for Rick Dowell. That could be a very early doors visit to the pit lane. Let's get a gander of that on the replays here. You can see he just ran things a little bit short there at turn 8A, and that kicked the back end asunder from Dowell. Now Rick Dowell doesn't consider his odds at a run into the pit lane, so ambitious stuff. Opening 10 minutes there, maybe less damage than we're privy to. On board with Byron Forrest, he's dropped away massively from that fight at the top 5. Kevin Quain has escaped him for the time being, 2.5 seconds up the road from the 824. Liam Bello is catching up. Just to take note of this there, that gap has dropped from about 2.2 seconds to 1.7. So a little bit of a lump in the throat if you were in the driver's seat right now, the 824. That 101 is gaining. See Gabriel Gaudreau, the first of our visitors then to the pit lane, down in 15th, but he's taken his mandatory pit stop, so he's got 50 minutes here, which that Mercedes can absolutely give him for fuel and tyres. We'll see, though, whether or not he gains position. We're looking here at what looks to be the beginnings of that fight for second place. Right now, we're on board with the defender's perspective here, that being Timo de Tosto. He had a fantastic start to this race, but in the next 10 minutes, so it seems, from the race start, it seems to have fallen a little bit by the wayside. Now he has to consider his odds here for fighting even for a podium, as losing out position now to Vilorio is only going to ensure that Badiali's got clearer line of sight to the number 58 Mercedes, potentially even to scrape him outside of a top 3. Having a look then, after 10 minutes of racing, Lebay leads De Tosto second, Vilorio maintains third, and Badiali fourth, Kevin Quain in the top 5, Byron Forrest sixth, Liam Bello 7th, Richard Cecil in 8th, Graham Green in 9th, and Carl Martel in the top 10. John Prine in 11th, Rick Dowell in 12th, Alex Albert 13th, Clinton Bourne in 14th after an incident with Gabriel Gaudreau, the pair of them at the back of the field, with Gaudreau having taken his first pit stop, now in 15th position. Absolutely alien performance from the word go there by Christian Lebay. You can see is almost blurred out of focus there in the foreground, just that far up the field as we make our way around turn 4 from the perspective of Timo de Tosto. Really got his hands full here with the approach of Anthony Vilorio's number 41. Let's see if we can get a gander on board with the attacker's perspective here, just to get a line of sight from the McLaren. Up we go then to turn 6. You'll see what I mean. It is a very bizarre corner because that massive moment of compression can even cause the car to oversteer, as it just forces so much weight over the nose, makes the back end go light. Up towards the corkscrew we go, then you can see he's getting a lot more confident on the brakes in that McLaren. That's where he's able to reel in a lot of the time, but we can also attribute this to one of the age-old adages of motor car racing, the concertina effect. Out through the rainy curve then, turn 10. Number 58 from number 41. Right now, everything's settling into a nice, neat pattern, save for the fight of that top 2. What we can establish right now is it has been a perfect start for Lebay in the 119. He is now nearly 5 seconds up the road from the fight on our screens at the moment for second place. Vilorio getting ever closer here out through the Andretti hairpin as we make our way to turn 3. Bear in mind, manoeuvrability's to the side of the 570S here. Bring back up that balance of performance just to see how things are going to be affected between our two parties here. The McLaren sees massive advantage over Mercedes today. Mercedes, yes, they're in the negatives, losing 9 kilos, but that pales when you've chopped 40 kilos off of the McLaren 570S. So Vilorio has massive advantage here under balance of performance. That McLaren has been given a real spring in its step, and we'll see just how close he's willing to make it here between himself and De Tosto for that fight of second. Up through turn 6 we go then, on our way to turn 7. Up the Rahal straight. Into the corkscrew we go. Let's get a view on board, as a matter of fact, from our driver's perspective. As you can see just how much of a beating the cars take there. It is not a smooth drop down that hill. Out through the rainy curve, a lot of hesitation there from both drivers. They have to almost trail brake through that section just to keep the cars in the clear and narrow. It's the same story through here. You can see quite a bucket of understeer occurring for both sides of it. A lot more input than what the car can give you. Out through turn 11 we go then, onto the start of lap 9. 0.7 of a second there. So in the last lap just gone, Timo de Tosto has opened the taps and made 3 tenths up on Anthony Villorio's number 41. Seems majoritively in that first sector where the McLaren is making the bulk of its time here. It's where the Mercedes is arguably at its weakest. And now I am pleasantly surprised when seeing this comparison as brought up by that balance of performance. You really would think on paper McLaren has got this netted in the bag. But it's actually the more nuanced, really, of the balance of performance updates to these cars. You see kicking up a little bit of gravel there on the exit of turn 4. I think that may have just solidified a temporary end to his fight of second place for Anthony Villorio as we cut away from him here to check in on the cars at the back of the field. Clinton Bourne in the number 6 Audi still has not taken his chances at a run into the pit lane. Now consider that that bonnet is still flapping up there off of its catches. It is creating a little bit of extra drag over the nose of that number 6. That car isn't going to be getting any faster in the next 3/4 of an hour, so there is that opportunity from where he stands right now to salvage this by coming into the pits, but that's totally on his call. Perhaps it is less damage than we've been made aware of. You can see though it is quite substantial on the nose of that Audi. Nothing to bring out the intention of the scrutineers and bring him in on a black and orange. Not too far off it though. On the subject of German machinery, here's the BMW M4, number 998 of Giovanni Badiali. Settles into the rhythm of a comfortable third place for now. As you can see, actually having dropped behind 2 positions, rather shockingly here, is Anthony Villorio. So it begs the question, in the time we stopped covering him, what happened to Anthony Villorio? He was sitting rather comfortably in third place, where Badiali now sits. Now is behind both Badiali and Quain. So that is a rather significant change of fate here for Anthony Villorio. Now he will be in the almost imminent fighting for 4th position in a moment's time. You can see whatever has happened to him, we could likely assume that maybe even happened down at the corkscrew. Seems to be a pretty common place right now for a lot of these drivers. But that has not stumped his momentum whatsoever. He's actually reeling in that Mercedes at a rate of knots here, even out of corners that didn't look like it had the best of exits for. He's still raking in time. So let's stay on board with Villorio. Suddenly, things are shifted out of the McLaren's favour. Right now, he's now having to contend for what is actually 4th position. My mistake there. Half a second then between himself and Kevin Quain. That Mercedes has been rather comfortable inside of that top 5, but it seems that its tenure in 4th position could be running up here with the number 41 hot on his trails. Into turn 7 we go after the Rahal straight into the corkscrew. Mercedes from McLaren, Mercedes further on the inside, very nearly found itself in the high compression zone that we saw took out the likes of Rick Dowell. McDowell, though, I believe in this race, still, yes, doing okay there. He's up and ahead of the number 36 of Alex Albert towards the back of the field. They're behind John Prime, but still ahead of the number 3 and the number 6 of Gaudreau and Bourne. Out of turn 11 we go then. Let's stay on board with Villorio because things have massively changed for him here. And the last time we saw him, he was chilling up in 3rd place, even having a pop at his chances for 2nd. But now he has really got some homework to do here in the next 43 minutes of racing. Heading down towards turn 2, he takes the inside line. Doesn't have anywhere near enough room, but we did see the intentions creeping around there, and Quain using every available inch of the track has actually netted him a little bit of benefit here because despite being within half a second, he's still able to keep Villorio at a comfortable arm's length here. For how much longer, though, as we can see, this area of the track is where the Mercedes have struggled before, but the same story could be said of the McLaren, as plenty of drivers now are getting a little too confident around the track limits there. You can see both of them picking up on the same mistake there, and I think that also comes with the argument of following in each other's lines here. Is that it's this almost state of pseudo-hypnosis for these drivers when they're caught up in battles like this, where they follow each other's line, they mimic one another and make very small changes to what they would do. And you can see this is exactly that philosophy, that sort of cuttlefish mindset we're seeing from the McLaren. He's been following the Mercedes' line, but he's been making those little improvements here and there. That's the great thing about being the attacking of 2 cars. You can almost temporarily turn off part of your brain when you're following the other car, because all of that subconscious knowledge of braking zones, of cornering speeds can be thrown by the wayside because you've already got a test car right in front of you. You see, though, the bumps out of the rainy curve haven't done Villorio many favours. In fact, that could be an indication as to where things have been going wrong for the McLaren and what dropped him out of that fight for 2nd. Right now, the more calm and contempt of the pair is the one leading that charge in 4th. That being Kevin Quain in the 607. Now, after nearly 20 minutes into today's session, it is Lebay from De Tosto's business as usual on that front row, but that is a growing margin by nearly 5 seconds now, just between the pair, as opposed to between the top 4. Now Badiali slots in only about 4 seconds away there. I think the real talk right now is Vilorio v Quain, that fight for 4th position. Quain 4th, Vilorio now drops down to 5th after an incident that we didn't capture. It's a very bizarre one indeed. As we took a look around the field to see what was going on, what was the state of affairs here, we saw that his chances of a front row finish potentially disappear. Now, never say never on regards to that for Anthony Vilorio, but we can see he is still trying his chances here, even for 4th position. So up through turn 6, he's trying to get inside Quain's head, trying to sucker him into making the wrong kind of moves in the wrong kind of corners. Right now, steadfast in his convictions, though, Kevin Quain is holding on to 4th. For how much longer, though? Plenty of drivers can take this for a few laps, but not forever. Pressure eventually gets to even the strongest. Out through the rainy curve, turn 9, then turn 10. Vilorio is not giving up. You really got to appreciate the determination here. He is throwing that McLaren at every single corner like it owes him money. It is ruthless stuff by the 41. Now on the exit of turn 11, he's got his best chance here to chase that Mercedes down. These two find themselves relatively equally matched when it comes to straight line speed. Now we've got to consider slipstream on his side here. Does Vilorio try for the impossible lunge down into turn 2? We've seen it done by GT3s. No one dare attempt it in GT4. And a bit of oversteer, dare I say it there, out through the second part of the Andretti hairpin. So he's rallying that McLaren now, throwing absolutely everything into this drive. Could he find his way by turn 4? Not this time around. Tucks back in behind him. Meanwhile, looking further behind him, oh my goodness, there's, we nearly lost what was going to be quite a hefty accident if he didn't save that car. Great car control by the pair of them, actually. Both of them found themselves in trouble running wide out of turn 5 there. You could see, oh my goodness gracious me. How is he still in the clear and narrow here? He's been pushing that McLaren so hard that it has started pushing him back. Maybe out of that fight for 4th temporarily, as he's now actually in the fight with himself to keep that McLaren on the road. Further behind him then, Byron Forrest in 6th, Liam Bellow 7th, Richard Cecil in 8th, Graham Green in 9th, and Carl Martel inside that top 10. John Prine in 11th, Rick Dowell in 12th, Alex Albert 13th, Clinton Bourne 14th, and Gabriel Gaudreau in 15th position. Nearest fight on the track is either Vilorio to Quain or Bellow to Forrest. Right now, the gap 1.2 seconds. Bear in mind, we're coming up on the 30-minute mark here. It's in and around this range between, I'd say, coming at about 35 to maybe 25 minutes left to go in today is where we could see the bulk of our pit stop runs here. It's always around that dead center mark, give or take 5 minutes either side of it. So let's see what our drivers start to cook up in terms of strategy. We know things are going to be all hands on deck, full command center in the core of the 119 leading this charge. LeBay's not going to leave anything up to chance here. He's got the Grandmaster play, and he is not looking to make any wrong moves. So the pits is going to be no different for the 119. It's been flawless through practice, flawless through qualifying. LeBay is gunning for a Grand Slam, and with the pace he's on at the moment, I would not rule it out. I think he's waiting for his contemporaries to pit before him if he means to secure leading every single lap of the race. Of course, that is the main prerequisite, besides leading quali and leading practice, to pick up a Grand Slam. Still on board with Vilorio and Quain, one of our closest fights on the field at the moment. Now, not to neglect what could be the imminent fight in the near future between Bellow and Forrest. That is a closing gap right now, but that sits up in around 1.8 seconds right now. So Forrest actually gaining on Vilorio the longer he stays behind the Mercedes. And Bellow's losing steam there in the background, especially out of the corkscrew with the Porsche. It just seems a little bit more tidy than the Chevys. It is a remarkable feat then that 119 is leading by such a margin when there is a very clear issue with the Chevrolets losing time through the middle sector of this track. Whatever he has cooked up in that 119 is something nothing short of alien for Christian LeBay. We're still watching though, and back into that fight for 4th is Anthony Vilorio and Kevin Quain. Let's get a look from the view of the defending perspective as we see Battiali up in 3rd, checking in here. Let's find him. Kevin Quain, the man defending for position of 4th. He has put on a steadfast fight here. He has not left anything up to spare, no scraps to pick at for the number 41. He's remained steadfast in his line. He has not faltered seemingly once here. And that stonewall defense of things has kept him high and mighty in 4th. capitalizing on the mistake then of Vilorio. He has been an incredibly tough car to follow today. Looking ever more eager here as he's potentially even looking to close the gap on Badiali. Now, that has been slowly chipped away at in the last couple of laps here. Maybe the BMW has become a touch complicit in his line, and this constant adrenaline of being pressured by the McLaren is accidentally improving Quain's pace. In his last lap was a 1:31.025, his fastest of this session, a 1:30.220. Out through turn 10 we go then. That gap still hovers around the 2-second mark. And actually, I believe we could see darting into the pit lane. Yes, you can see the McLaren there in the background. That's Anthony Vilorio. So Quain secures fourth for now, but strategy has crept in the fight for fourth position. Vilorio has cooked the tyres out seemingly on that McLaren. We saw it in the last couple of laps, a bit of a shakier performance than the man who started this race. And he becomes a very early entry to the pit stop. Now, we said that range could be around 35 to 25. Very rare is it that the upper limit is ever reached here, and we see those earlier pit stops. But usually this is under the guise of some cunning strategy cooked up on the fly here. And as to whether or not it's going to work is another question entirely. Having a look around the field there in upper position because of that early pit stop, Richard Cecil on the Alpine chasing Liam Bello, but he's got 3 seconds to clear there. Must say, that 1.8 litre Alpine, really the David to Chevrolet's Goliath here. Liam Bellows up the field there with an engine more than 3 times its size. So having a look around the field, where are our nearest fights coming from? Seemingly from the Aether here, because things have spread out massively on the start of this race. You can see still having yet to face himself in the pit lane. The number 336 Aston Martin of Rick Dowell stays out after his incident down at the corkscrew. Timo Tosto about to encounter lapped traffic there. Clinton Bourne moves to the right-hand side of the track out through turn 1. Tosto down towards turn 2. The gap between himself and LeBay now up 6 seconds. So that is just truly remarkable pace from the leading Chevrolet. The real question is, where can our next fights emerge from as we find ourselves in a momentary dry period of this race? Now, that is not too uncommon to encounter here at Laguna Seca. It is a track that has favoured itself to endurance racing, so for these more shorter hour-long races, it is a bit of an accelerated process out into what we call the plateau period here. Drivers are matching themselves within a few tenths, give or take, of their best times on track, and every move towards one another is slow and gradual and not often accomplished quickly without the intervention of, say, for example, lapped traffic or accidents. See, into the pits as well, Richard Cecil takes early tenure in the number 5 Alpine. That was a very quick stop there for Richard Cecil. Now, he must have hopped in maybe some time ago there in the Alpine, but he's back out on track. Number 5, making his way out. He's behind Anthony Vilorio, who's now 9.6, make it 10, 11. That's going to keep climbing up the field there in 12th position. See Carl Martel now up to 8th. And he started from the back of the field. I want to make that point clear. Carl Martel had a solid qualifying session. He was that missing car in the middle of the field, and he started from 15th. He's up nearly half the field. Actually, he's up over half the field, let's put it that way, to where he's at the moment, nearly at the halfway mark of this race. So if I were gunning for a vote of driver of the day, look very few further than the number 99. He has been a silent but deadly killer here in that top 10. We must consider as well, pit stops are still a factor left to play, and we can see another driver in the pits right now, Liam Bello with Chevrolet. Now number 101. He's had a fairly confident race, but he's been hovering around the middle to the back of that top 10. Not a lot has been going on for him over the course of this race, and we do actually, yes, have yellow flags. So as we're staying on board here with Christian LeBay, he is heading right into the mouth of some imminent danger. The number 3 in front of him of Gabriel Gaudreau ran into some trouble after the exit of the corkscrew, but it seems to have resolved itself. So for the leading Chevrolet, not an awful lot to worry about here, as he's able to keep foot firmly buried in the pedal case here on his way down towards turn 10, back on the brakes, as I should say. You know, you don't want to be flat out through there. I highly doubt it. Down towards turn 11 we go. In the background there, the grey and yellow, number 58 of Timo de Tosto. Hot on his trail is another car in the pits right now, number 36. We just saw right at the very right edge of our screens, if we can catch him here, Alex Albert. And also joining him in the pits there is Timo de Tosto. So we'll see what the going rates is for Badiali. Badiali stays out. Who else is going to be joining de Tosto in the pit lane? One does wonder. The 607 has slowed right down. So Kevin Quain's in. You can see him emerging there on the left-hand side. We're watching there. The car centre mass of your screens is Timo de Tosto in the number 58. Just passing him there, the 607 of Quain. We also see leaving the pit lane there as we cut on to the 607. He actually missed his pit stop. Oh my goodness. Oh, that is embarrassing. And on tape too. Oh no. Oh, it happens to the best of us, mate. And you can see where that all went wrong for him, because right in front of him, he was having a phase through the 36 of Albert. Oh, gosh. Oh, that'd be the worst. So Richard Cecil, we saw earlier on in the pits, he's up to 12th now. Liam Bellow's only 1.8 seconds up the field. Now, these two were very close to one another on track at one point over the course of this race, and that is a gap that looks to be dropping down here. The Alpine having that extra lap on the brand new tyres is definitely giving him the benefit of extra heat in those Pirellis. Of course, doesn't take too long to build up the heat. We did just have a momentary yellow flag now, this time out of the rainy curve. That has since cleared itself up. The number 3 of Gabriel Gaudreau looks to be a potential DNF in today's race, as he is now towed back to the pit lane. The 119, the leading Chevrolet of Christian Lebay, is into the pit at the halfway mark. So in goes Lebay. Badiali looks to upset the balance here because he stays out. So Lebay's chances of a Grand Slam have disappeared there. He hasn't led every single lap, as now leading lap 20 is the BMW of Giovanni Badiali. One does question then, past the halfway mark, give or take about, I'd say, upwards of 4 to maybe even 7 additional minutes here before we realistically see this strategy fail. Is Badiali going to come into the pit lane? See in front of him there, the lapped car, 607 of Kevin Quain. As we can see right now, Giovanni Badiali is, for the time being, our new race leader. But for how much longer remains the question. His fastest lap, a 1:30 dead there over the course of this race, down to the 1,000th of a second. Running away from him there, we can see Rick Dowell's up to 7th. Make it 6th there. Make it 3rd, actually, for the Aston Martin. Bear in mind, all of that could come away, especially with that nose repair. Whether or not he's going to give his team extra time to patch up the 336 is another question entirely. Byron Forrest has just come out of the pits there, emerging 6th behind Anthony Villorio, but ahead of Liam Bellow and Graham Green and Richard Cecil. Graham Green in the pit lane just having confirmed his exit now. The Porsche might just squeeze out of this inside the top 10. Who knows here, because heading up the pack not too far from us here is the 607 of Quain. So heading down towards the Andretti hairpin is Graham Green for Porsche, going to stay inside of that top 10. You can see just how tight the run is out of the pit lane there. You can see plenty of drivers have been caught out over the course of practice, and now this is really something they're quite afraid of in today's race. You can see Gabriel Gaudreau looks to be provisionally a DNF in today's race. We'll see if he makes his way back out onto the track. But right now, he was towed to the pit lane not long ago. The number 6 of Clinton Bourne is into the pit lane as we speak. We're watching now with Timo de Tosto as he's hunting down Rick Dowell for 3rd place. It's Aston Martin versus Mercedes. The war of the siblings here. M178 versus M177 engine. The same 4-litre bi-turbo, but peeling his way round the outside, and it seemed like the Aston rolled over to give him that one there. Goes Timo de Tosto up into 3rd place. Rick Dowell down to 4th. Anthony Villorio there, you can see just squeezing into frame from 5th place. Having a look here, Richard Cecil. 1.9 seconds from Liam Bellow, so that gap has started to open back up. It could be a little too late for the Alpine to come and have a go for a move. You'll be hoping that Bellow burns himself out in the next 27 minutes. We'll see what goes on in that fight of David and Goliath between Chevrolet and Alpine in a moment's time. We're going to actually catch on board with the leading car here, number 998, as he peels in. Here comes the race leader then, Giovanni Badiali. Where does he re-emerge then, being the real question, because Badiali was sitting on the podium positions. Has it been too late to call into the pits? You can see he's given it another 4 minutes since the bulk of our pit stops today, but there, as he peels in, Clinton Bourne peels out in the R8, and a very lively exit by the number 6. Timo de Tosto, Rick Dowell, and Anthony Villorio not too far away. Spinning out, though, goes Rick Dowell up through turn 6. That's his second spin today. You can see there is actually the far edge of the track that caught him, not so much the compression. Now, it did play a part by causing the car to understeer, but it seems like a persistent yellow flag right now for Rick Dowell. That could be the end of the line for the Aston Martin in today's race. Back into the pits there went Rick Dowell, and actually now cut us over to Byron Forrest. So sadly, that is a confirmed DNF. We're back into green flag conditions. Sadly, there goes Rick Dowell. Solitary Aston Martin of round 1 is out. Now on board with Byron Forrest in a comfortable top 5. What a way to start the season for Porsche. It is quite a gamble. Keen-eyed viewers of TRTM will know we've covered GT4 in some capacity before. Now, that was over on our sister league, the NLRL Solo Multi-Class Endurance Championship, of which there is another round coming up this Saturday at 7 o'clock p.m. British Summertime, BST. Do the maths there for our Eastern Standard Time viewers at home here on the Competizione Performance League. We have covered GT4 in some capacity before, and one such story was that of Hayden Prodger. He moved away from KTM to the confines of Porsche, which we see driven right now by Byron Forrest. It was a gamble worth making as he elevated that to his first GT4 win in Imola. And with Byron Forrest, it is a real precedent to be set here, because he looks very, very confident indeed in that Porsche. Now, of course, keen-eyed viewers will have seen him over on NLRL. He's competed with Ford, and he keeps the ball rolling here with Porsche. Currently sitting in P5. Let's have a gander around the field here. So Timo de Tosto has got his hands full, because after that ambitious pit stop, Giovanni Badiali, yes, he re-emerges in third, but he actually re-emerges more remarkably closer than he was when he went in to the pit lane there, and that gap currently separated by about 1.7 seconds. Now, it was even closer before our exit of turn 11, where in which Timo de Tosto has had an absolute blinder exit on his way down towards turns 1 and 2. Down we go into turn 3. Also see in the chat there for the first time joining us, All-Star Yoshi. Welcome to the chat. If you're joining us just now, 23 minutes left to go of the first hour-long race here of the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series. Getting a look at the calendar here, we'll be at Alton Park on August 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 1 a.m. British Summer Time for our viewers here in the United Kingdom. Down towards turn 6 we go then. The story has been one of tumultuous circumstances inside that top 5, namely for if we go and find a gander of this driver, as we see actual trouble here start to arise for Alex Albert in his efforts to shift over for approaching leading Chevrolet of Christian Lepay. Oh my goodness, on the exit of the rainy curve there, that nearly saw another victim in the court of the number 36. Goodness gracious me, do try to keep things in the clear and narrow, Mr. Albert. Having a look then, it has been a race of tumultuous circumstance for the number 41 of Anthony Villorio. Started here in a very confident third place. Now that is inherited by the 998 of Giovanni Badiali. The one thing he has been able to conquer then has been that 5th position on track. He was hunting down Kevin Quain, and rather remarkably, I am let's search around for Quain here, because he is actually quite a ways back from where we last saw him. He was in a confident top 10 position, and just like Villorio, has found himself the victim of a off-screen accident. Now finding himself scraping towards the back of the top 10. Bear in mind, Graham Green, nearest car to him, 3.5 seconds up the road. The chances for a fight back to 8th are still lively and on the charts. Closest to our front fight here could be occurring in the next couple of laps. As you can see, the gap is starting to stabilize between Badiali and De Tosto. BMW versus Mercedes for second place. And bear in mind, not a passive observer here, actively fighting his way up to these two is Anthony Villorio, the man who held on to the last of those podium positions at the start of today's race. But this race has been defined thus far by utter utter precise domination by the 119er Christian Lebay. And really, taking a look at his track record, would you be so surprised that Lebay is leading our first championship race here in the Competizione Performance League? Because I wouldn't. Getting a look at that, those single races there, SR1 through SR6 for GT4, were dominated by all but one event for Christian Lebay, the other being currently held by the man on third, Giovanni Badiali, at round 4 in Suzuka. Over in GT3 as well, Lebay's picked up 50% of all race wins, the other going to Byron Forrest and Anthony Villorio, who are on this grid right now inside of that top 10. As a matter of fact, both of them inside of that top 5. 21 minutes then left to go. Right now, the closest fight seems to be occurring just outside of our front row here. Badiali is gaining. Make no mistake of it, the BMW is on the charge, so for the man defending the honour of second position here, the man who started on that front row and has fought vigilantly to stay in that position, Timo de Tosto, is going to have his hands full. Lap traffic ahead of him, the number 36 there of Alex Albert. Let's get on board with Badiali because I am intensely curious as to what that BMW has still got in the back pocket here. Villorio might be just a little too far away to stage anything too crazy at the moment, but if these two get side by side and things do get hairy, and believe me, they can get hairy here in Laguna Seca, it will be all to Villorio's benefit. Just as much as he lost out position by spurious accident, he could gain one, and I believe heading into the wall there and bringing out a temporary yellow flag was the 36 of Albert in his efforts to get shot of these two drivers. So that is a very, very peculiar scene indeed. Fortunately, I believe, yes, just exiting turn 8 now, 8A, and into turn 9 is the number 36. So Albert is safe and is still able to continue running in today's race. Let's stay on board then with the attacking of two. Giovanni Badiali in the number 998 BMW is hunting down his chances at second. And this seems to be the status quo here at a lot of these endurance-oriented circuits, of course. I'd say your two most iconic races from the perspective of a European would be the IndyCar Monterey Grand Prix, and it would also be the American Le Mans Series back in the day, running here, what is now the IMSA WeatherTech course in Monterey. I think the time, I don't remember quite remarkably that fight between the Flying Lizard Porsche and the Corvette C6R. I think that's really something that a lot of people's minds drift toward in the time here at Laguna Seca. And the thing is with these endurance racing tracks is that it does open up massively at the midway, but in the last 20 minutes is when you get the second of your two crunch zones, the first being that opening 20 minutes. So it's almost a rule of thirds here for an hour-long race, and Badiali is right with De Tosto, so there is a very, very good chance here for him to stage an assault for second place. He's even looking to make this side-by-side on the exit of the corkscrew. That is functionally suicide, but he's going to hold it back in a single file. Late apex, better of the two exits at turn 8A, into the rainy curve of Mercedes, still holding centre mass of the road. De Tosto throwing the kitchen sink here at Badiali, but he may just had the move up to the inside. He is trying for it. He's going to force the 58 all the way asunder. Who comes out on top by the time he gets to turn 11? Back to the inside. Does he have enough room to squeeze things by on the inside here? Around the outside goes the number 98 of Giovanni Badiali. It is a drag race between Mercedes and BMW up to turn 1, single file. Badiali's got to try and defend this for love nor money here of second place. He's had a very good go to get up into it. Can he hold on to it as we head down into the Andretti hairpin? It looks to be the case. Very late on the brakes goes the 58 of Timo de Tosto, but all for naught there. Badiali secures second place for the time being. Up into turn 3 we go. And what an exchange we've just seen there. That was properly hair-raising stuff in the middle and final sector on lap 26. That was carefully crafted by Badiali. That he did not show an ounce of fear in that move, and really I think most men would be quivering in their boots at the thought of a move like that. He tried his luck at the corkscrew. I mean, who does that? Out through turn 6 then we go. Down the Rahal straight. That is a stern message to be sent by Giovanni Badiali. He may be 11.5 seconds from the leading Chevrolet of Christian Lebay, but it is not going to stop him from getting the highest position he can here. The chances of a win may be by the wayside for a lot of these drivers today, but Badiali is not taking that to heart. Out through turn 10 we go. Bear in mind, he may have second, but it is not a position he has snatched from Timo de Tosto. That Mercedes is still right with him, and with a poor exit of turn 11, looks like de Tosto side by side and back up and ahead. So it seems here the BMW might just have a little bit more beans in the opening straight. Out through turn 1 we go. The Mercedes is to the inside. He'll have plenty of chances to go later on the brakes and force things to abreast into the Andretti hairpin. Back up the inside goes Timo de Tosto. And what a retake then. One tiny mistake and Badiali's back where he started here in third place. Man who previously held third place, you can see hovering around in the background, Anthony Vilorio is getting closer, and out of turn 4, minor mistake there from de Tosto is forcing this battle back into 2 wide, now this time up through turn 5. Surely we are nearing the first of our major contact here. How much longer can they play this game? Up through turn 6, then we go at the top of the hill, up to the Rahal Straight. Could there be trouble on the horizon? Not for either of these two, as they are absolutely dead flat. You can see it is barely anything, millimeters give or take there as we head into the corkscrew. Turn 7, then turn 8, running things deep, and a perfect switchback by Badiali. He sold him not only a dummy but the whole circus on his way through turns 8 and 8A. Out through turn 9, that is firm by Badiali. We also saw temporarily, now this was for Graham Green out of turn 4. The 747 did have the yellow flags out. It looked like a bit of trouble on the exit. And actually, speaking of trouble on the exit, that wasn't the greatest of exits for Badiali at turn 11. It seems history is imminent to repeat itself, as on his run out of turn 1, that Mercedes hasn't gone anywhere. The number 6 now in trouble, Clinton Bourne, with the Audi team in trouble. Bit wide on the entry to the Andretti hairpin, but carrying a little bit more momentum for his shot into turn 3 and 4. Now, this is not the greatest area of the track for the front engine cars. Very flat, very featureless, and those sausage curbs on the inside at turn 4 can spell doom quickly. So, up through turn 4 we go then. Little bit of dust. No, actually, that was very, very clean, in fact, between those two. Normally, expect to see a little bit of dust over the left-hand side kicked up into their eyes as they make their way from turn 4 to 5 here. Now on the run uphill to turn 6. Where can this go next? It has been an incredibly exciting last 10 minutes or so here, and with 14 minutes still on the clock here before the end of round 1 of the championship, it can still go any which way. And we saw de Tosto almost running a 50-50 grind up the the rumble curbs, I should say, on the right-hand side after turn 6. Definitely a more bizarre line between the pair out through corkscrew. I must say, it was well worth staying up past, well, I would say most people's bedtime, really, to record this race, because wow, what a pleasure it has been. I must say, it's worth staying up until 1 in the morning and probably not getting sleep until gone 5. Really, it is. Note to self, take up more North American contracts, because what a treat. Down into turn 2 then. Badiali from de Tosto. Vilorio is gaining. You can see that McLaren is getting closer with every single lap. I predict in the next 13.5 minutes, we're going to see these two side by side once more. So before that happens, let's get a gander around the rest of the field. Byron Forrest currently in the top 5. He's going to be happy with that one. Still on solid points for today. Liam Bello, 9.1 seconds behind him. Graham Green inside that top 10. Behind him by 3.7 seconds is Carl Martel. You can see the number 3, Gabriel Gaudreau, still in the pits there. That looks to be functionally another DNF after Rick Dowell in the Aston Martin. Timo de Tosto, see the second of our two parties here, looking to retake second from Giovanni Badiali. It has been a stern drive between the American and the Italian for the last couple of laps here in round 1. If this is the precedent, oh my goodness, off at the corkscrew. That's disaster for Timo de Tosto. Getting a look on the replays there. Down into the corkscrew goes. I think he just held the brakes for a little too long. The back end swung away, and oh, it's all come asunder for Timo de Tosto. I maybe spoke a little too soon. The yellow flags are still out for the corkscrew here. The approaching 101 of Liam Bello is still being given a caution to see what is going on up ahead, but we're back in the green flags. Up on 2 wheels there on the exit of the rainy curve is a very, very disgruntled number 58 of Timo de Tosto. Fortunately, and I believe with every silver lining to a dark cloud here, I don't think there's substantial damage on that Mercedes. Maybe save for a bit of a broken heart and some shabby tyres. No major steering, suspension or aerodynamic damage means that so long as he can dust the Pirellis off, he can still run the next 11.5 minutes without a visit to the pit lane. So that massively shakes things up because Giovanni Badiali holds on to second place. Anthony Villorio returns to where he started today's race from. He's up into third. Forrest is now up into fourth. De Tosto to the back of the top five. Bello in sixth. Richard Cecil in seventh. Kevin Quain in eighth. Graham Green in ninth. And Carl Martel rounds out our top 10. John Prine in 11th. And not too far away from him, I believe, actually, no, it's a lapping car. That's Christian Lebay getting up past him there. God, no offense to the Malois team, but it's so hard to tell your cars apart. So, Alex Albert in 12th position. We can see Clinton Bourne, who was caught up in the fray there. 3 drivers on 3 completely separate lengths of the race. Finds himself in 13th. Gabriel Gaudreau and Rick Dowell, provisional DNFs from round 1. A little gander here with Richard Cecil. And he will note as well a little bit of damage on the nose of the Alpine. So, perhaps some trouble had earlier on in today's race. Nonetheless, he looks at a top 10 finish, which really, when you've got to consider what the Alpine's up against now, not only is it the smallest of our engines here, we previously thought the smallest engine came from the KTM team. Now, that was a 2-litre Audi EA113 turbo inline 4 from the Audi TTS. But this has a titular 1.8-litre TCE from Renault and Nissan. We do actually have yellow flags out, so we'll catch up with the Alpine discussion in a moment's time. Clinton Bourne is in trouble here. He's come to the end of the runoffs here at turn 4. Is that the end of the line for Clinton Bourne? It was a gamble perhaps not worth making to move away from Porsche and over to Audi. He's into the pits. That could be the end of the line then. Another DNF and another victim claimed here at Laguna Seca. With 9 minutes left to go, this track is being ruthless now. It does not matter where you are on the track. This track will find a way to ruin your race today. I suppose 2 drivers who aren't going to be complaining too much in the next 9.5 minutes are Christian Lebay and Giovanni Badiali, sitting high in the front row positions. Villorio is now nearly 5 seconds away from Badiali, so now with the weight lifted from his shoulders and Timo de Tosto now a distant memory at the back of that top 5 from where he was before, riding right in the rearview mirror of the 998. Badiali's able to really open the taps on that BMW. I must say, for the only BMW entered into this championship, that is a real shock and awe entry from the 998, second on debut. Bear in mind, if it was going to be anyone realistically, having a look back at that data, I hate to sound like a broken record here, but he was the only other driver to win in GT4. Were you really expecting anybody else to be on second today? Byron Forrest, who's picked up his own spot of silverware, but admittedly up in GT3, is having a very solid opening to today's race. We'll stay on board with Byron Forrest here in the Porsche. Still on board with the titular Porsche. One of 2 in this race, the other one being Graham Green. You can see that the number 6 is now into the pit lane as well. So that was Clinton Bourne. So that marks 2 drivers that are, yes, still in the pit lane, but look to be out of this race. Clinton Bourne and Gabriel Gaudreau. Still on board at the moment with Byron Forrest. No real news here of what's going on between Villorio and Badiali. Still about 6.5-ish minutes. Not minutes. You'd hope not minutes. Seconds between second and third. Gosh, I mean, it's a real challenge here, recording out past hours. Probably be asleep by now, but definitely worth the invitation. I can hear the very distinctive sound, now my ears do not deceive, of the 5.2-litre V10 engine of an Audi R8 leaving the paddock. So Clinton Bourne is back in the fight here. He may be a lap down now, but he is adamant to see the checkered flag. I mean, you've got to respect it at this point. He was down and out from the word go. It was a real gamble to go with Audi, knowing how bad their brakes are in GT4, but by God, he's committed. You really can't falter that upon anyone. He is adamant to see the end of this race today. He's adamant to pick up points in the championship. He is not taking no for an answer. Bear in mind, just for finishing the race is an extra point. Every ounce counts then in this championship. 8 rounds in total. As we see here with Badiali, let's quickly have a look back on the calendar. I think we brought it up a few times over the course of this. And for you just joining us now in chat, you can now get to see the full championship calendar for Season 1. 8 rounds in total. We're here at Laguna Seca. We're at Alton Park for the next round. And then Suzuka, Donington at the halfway mark of the championship. Imola thereafter, Watkins Glen, Zolder and Misano. For our 60-minute races like the one you've seen today, will be rounds 1, 3, 5 and 8. And for our double stint, 30-minute apiece races, you'll be seeing them from round 2, 4, 6 and 7. So, getting a look at where the standings are here with 6 minutes left to go. Christian Lebay has had a very quiet tenure. It's lonely at the top for Lebay. He sits above the rest in first with the fastest lap, sadly, having lost out his chances for a Grand Slam, courtesy of Badiali leading the race for a handful of laps over a difference in pit strategy. Lebay will nonetheless look to be picking up in the next 5 minutes should nothing change. Oh my goodness, don't get too confident here. Looks to pick up the inaugural win of this championship. Bear in mind, a lot of silverware under his belt, but this is finally for something in the books of a championship. So he is definitely giving it the A game today here. And 119 has led this brutal fashion, double figures, absolutely no quarter given by Chevrolet. Giovanni Badiali in second then, with Anthony Villorio in third, Byron Forrest in fourth. Timo de Tosto, after his incident, remains in that top 5. So down but not out of the fight for a championship here in Season 1. Liam Bello in 6th place with Richard Cecil in 7th. You can see Kevin Quain is closing in, and Graham Green not too far away from him is sandwiched in between Chevrolets here. Carl Martel being one of them. Let's get on board with these two as we are in the bookings here for a fight for position. Looking on board then with a defending of 2. Let's get a view from the attacker's point of view here. Carl Martel in the number 99. Out through turn 5 we go. Heading uphill towards turn 6, then up the Rahal straight. It is incredibly close between these two. Now, this has been a long time coming at the back of the top 10 here. Who ends up as the back of our top 10? Will it be Green? Will it be Martel? Martel's looking for the inside as we head into the corkscrew. That seemed all but concluded before it even had an opportunity to start there. I think Green saw him coming from a mile out. And, you know, when you see a train coming your way, you don't stand on the tracks. That was pretty decisive there by Martel. Alex Albert looks to have damage on the nose. Could that have been from earlier? You can see in the background there the change of position for 9th place. Martel up to 9th now. Looking around, you can see it's really just Chevy Central here. And that really wasn't a shocker. Looking at those sign-up pages, it was 8 Chevrolets and 8 Mercedes cars. I think no one's really too surprised that in a series titled the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America that you would be in no shortage of American machines. And this Chevrolet has just dominated this round. More namely, this Chevrolet has dominated this round. And bear in mind, all you need to do, not only take a look at the silverware that he's accrued over the course of Competizione Performance League single races in GT4, but also have a gander at what he's been able to do outside of that. He was the TRC I believe TRC GT4 champion, the HCCL GT4 champion, if I'm not mistaken, as well, and also won Season 1 of the NLRL Sunday League. He's also looking to lead right now the NLRL Solo Multi-Class Endurance Championship from the GT4 category in the very same Camaro you see on your screen at the moment. So Christian Lebay knows a thing or two about Chevrolets. He knows a thing or two about championships, and bear in mind, well, one of the more remarkable statistics in his career was in that Sunday League, as mentioned before. He went on to win the championship despite never winning a single race, and he did so, and this is the real kicker, in an Aston Martin V12 Vantage, properly out of its time machinery, and he was a very consistent flyer of the podium. His best finish that season was 2nd, never saw the top step of the podium, not that it mattered because he got the championship without ever winning a race. And And he is the sort of phantom menace, as it were, of championship fights, but he has a much more pragmatic stance of things in GT4. He'd much rather take the gold here than wait around for a championship to appear in his lap through good work and consistency. He'd rather have his cake and eat it too. And really, with 2 minutes left to go, can anyone stand in his way? I do not think so. Not on this day. It has been really his competition to win. Looking at it here, he still leads this race and has led some by such a wide margin. And that fastest lap as well really doesn't look to be challenged anytime soon. A 1:29.627 on race pace condition. Bear in mind, Christian Lebay is a very frequent world record setter for balance of performance Chevrolet times on Simbot. So I really do not disprove that he could go on to win plenty more races in this championship. I mean, to quote as well, Kev Zero in chat mentioned sometime earlier, Lebay is an alien in the Camaro. I mean, really, with the kind of skills he's brought to the table today, you'd really think he's from another planet. Having a look at the rest of our lineup here, we saw, oh, goodness, look at that there. That was a big, big bump over turn 3 for Giovanni Battiali. Fortunately, he's 7 seconds up the field from Anthony Villorio, so no imminent oh, goodness, do keep it in the clear and narrow. Let's not try and exact the commentator's curse here. Only a minute left to go. One more lap on this track, and then it's all over. See, Byron Forrest is slowly being caught by Timo de Tosto. Now, we saw the last time we covered an event here on the Competizione Performance League was single race 6 at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza on Saturday last week. So it is not out of the realm of possibility here for another last lap bash here for position. Last time it was between Villorio and Quain. This time it could be between de Tosto and Forrest. With only one more lap on the bookings here, only time will tell us different. And speaking of Quain, he's actually just got up and ahead of Richard Cecil's Alpine.
Leaders on final lap now.
So, as you heard there, leaders on the final lap. The 119 has taken the white flag here and is ready to wrap things up in a nice neat bow for Lebay's first championship win here in the GT4 Pro-Am Cup by Competizione Performance League, brought to you by Malois Transport and AssurAction Transport Expert, and live exclusively here on TRTN. What a pleasure it's been then for this opening round. Plenty of twists and turns over the course of the last 60 minutes of racing, but it can only be one by one. We see plenty of fights kicking off across the top 10 positions. Let's see if we can get a gander very quickly here from Byron Forrest's point of view. As you can see, Timo de Tosto is in a hot pursuit here of 4th position. This could all come down to the wire. Same too is the story between Richard Cecil and Kevin Quain for 7th position. Alpine versus Mercedes, David versus Goliath, and a switchback of the ages for the Alpine. Get a gander of that on the replay. Good Lord. We do want to try and catch on board with Lebay because he's making his way down through the corkscrew. We're only a moment away then from the end of this race. And making his way to the line, it has been surefire from the word go here for Christian Lebay. He has gone almost uncontested. Were it not for a difference in pit strategy, he would have led every single race of today. Here in round 1, winning in Laguna Seca to kick off the championship is the 119 of Christian Lebay, victorious in Laguna Seca. What a performance on debut to this championship. He has spared no expense. He has shown no quarter, and a dominant win to kick off season 1. Getting a view then very quickly, Giovanni Battiali fights through thick and thin then for his first podium of this season on debut. Cross the line then, 2nd in round 1. What goes on then? Villorio for 3rd. We're seeing here that fight for 4th comes to a climax between Byron Forrest and Timo de Tosto. Had they one more lap on this track, I think we could have seen them side by side, but he's fought very, very well for that today. Byron Forrest 4th, Timo de Tosto a reluctant top 5. Not that he'll be scoffing too much at that, admittedly on the thought of what could have been. Liam Bello then to the line. The number 101, Richard Cecil behind him in the Alpine. Actually, we can see that's the Audi, as a matter of fact, number 6 of Clinton Bourne, and he does see the checkered flag, so fair play to him. He did get back out on track and get the job done. Richard Cecil to the line then, after that fantastic switchback move the lap before, takes home 6th with Alpine. Quain 7th, Carl Martel on his way to the line. We saw him get up and past Graham Green with ruthless efficiency in the 99. He makes 8th at the end of round 1. Graham Green on his way to the line then. Puts Porsche inside the top 10. Both Porsches then finish inside that top 10. The rest of the results there. John Prine in 11th. Alex Albert 12th. And Clinton Bourne in 13th. Sadly, DNFs from Rick Dowell Gabriel Gautreau and Andrew Veldkamp. So what an opening round that turned out to be, and jubilations there for Graham Green, but really you can only imagine what's going on in the mind of our race leader. Christian Lebay wins in round 1 of this season. What a way to kick the season off then. Could this be a clean sweep? Only time will tell. Getting a look at that calendar once more, you'll see that we'll be in Alton Park next week, same time, and then Suzuka and Donington towards the first half of the season. We'll be lucky to see our first of our double stint 30-minute races apiece for round 2 at Alton Park. I do thoroughly look forward to seeing where that goes. What an opening then we have had, and what a race. What a race. Well worth the staying up late here in the UK at our offices in TRTN. That is a fantastic opener. Very well done to Christian Lebay. Very well done to the rest of our podium sitters, Giovanni Badiali and Anthony Villorio. And a very well done to everyone who made it to the checkered flag. And a warm thank you to everyone who showed up for this opening round. What an opener it has been. Thoroughly looking forward to the next 7 weeks of working with Competizione Performance League. What a pleasure. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and take care. Good night.